Boundaries are important. Boundaries are needed, and you need to take a step back to really reevaluate your friendships, your situationships, your marriage, your family, and see if you have boundaries. Just ask the questions.
Welcome to the Breakthrough Podcast with your host, Reba Hobbs, a podcast motivated to help survivors of trauma heal and focus on their full potential.
Welcome back to another edition of the Breakthrough Podcast. And of course, I am your host, Reba. And today I am back from 2 months. I think it's been 2 months, but a month and a half probably. It's not even been that, from doing a lot of stuff, and I got to get back on track with podcasting. So I'm here, and I have a lot of content to record, not just today, but things that God been putting on my spirit to talk about, and things that actually been happening to me personally. So that's what I'm here for, to just express, tell my story, and to help other people. So with that being said, let's go into what we are grateful for. So what I'm grateful for, first of all, just to be here, because over these last few months I have been stressing a lot since we had the stroke back in, I had my stroke back in June of last year. So I've been still stressing a lot about a lot of stuff that I know I'm supposed to give to God. And if you see that little picture right there, you see that? That's me and my husband. So, and we're both pounds down now. He's not that big no more, but praise God. I'm also thankful for helping him get his weight down, because he got a lot going on with his body and everything else, and we'll talk about that another time. But besides that, I'm just grateful just to be here, to do this podcast, and to use my story and my platform to help others. Also, I'm grateful for, because of my two beautiful children. A lot of times I think we complain as parents because we got a lot on our plates. I know I do, with the kids or whatever. Like, they always need me, or it's always something, or they got something. I'm a part of my daughter's PTO, parent-teacher organization, because I know some people call it PTA, but it's PTO here in Wisconsin at her school. And so I'm a part of that. So they got a lot of events that I'm volunteering and doing. Then my son, he has homecoming, and he got all his little school stuff. So I'm personally just grateful for both of my kids, because if I don't get the opportunity to spend with them, and most parents don't, then because I work full time, and I'm always like, my job is stressful. I love my job, but it's a lot. First of all, to do, and there's a lot on my plate. Second of all, me trying to be a mother, a parent, and a wife. Yes, I'm married now. Been married for a while, but that's a whole nother story. It's been a lot. So that's part of my daily routine. I'm thankful for my kids, only because my kids, I don't have no problem with my kids. My kids are actually fine, whatever. But it's a couple things I want to talk about, talking about kids, okay? This is something I was talking to my husband about this morning, and I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about what made me think about doing this podcast first, and then we'll go into that. So I'm thankful for my kids, and if we get right into it, we're going to get to the podcast. So this podcast is pretty much talking about how to create boundaries in relationships. Now, I know we all talk about adults create boundaries, and there's a lot of adults that don't know how to create boundaries. A lot of adults don't know what it is to create boundaries for their lives, for their friends, for their family. But over the last few months, over the summertime, my son had to learn how to create boundaries with his friends. And so my son is, as y'all know, I talk about my son all the time. He is such a sweetheart. He's like, I realized my son is a lover. And I say that in a sense where he's so sweet, and his attitude is, you know, he's like his mama. We just a hopeful romantic, not hopeless. Okay, I learned that this week. a hopeful romantic. So my son just can't stay out of relationships. I'm trying to keep this boy out of relationships. And what I'm trying to do is help him and work with him on how to not just jump into relationships after he's been hurt from others. Now, mind you, he's only 16, but he's been through a lot since 8th grade. Kids nowadays are more advanced than what we were when we was 16 years old. So they go through a lot, and they've been through a lot. I give him the space to be himself. I give him the space to talk. I love that we have a relationship where he actually comes to me and talks to me about all his situations, his problems, things. And so over the last month, he's been coming to me a lot about his female problems with females and best friends and everything else. And it sounds like a boundary issue. So I started teaching him just recently, you don't sound like you have boundaries. And so as I'm teaching him about boundaries and he's opened up his eyes about, just allow a lot of stuff because he's just a sweetheart or whatever. I'm teaching him also how to be a gentleman, but I'm also teaching him how to grow into being a man. And he's about to hit his junior year of high school, so he's going off to college soon. So a lot of things he has to focus. I'm teaching him that, sometimes you got to take a break from relationships because you got to focus. I'm trying to tell him that now. It ain't working because he like a whole nother girl. But anyway, but I'm letting him make his choices the way he needs to make his choices. And I'm just there to guide him a little bit to say, okay. So he comes to me about a lot of stuff. More than he comes to his dad or anybody else, which is fine. It's just that it'd be funny to hear these stories about what he's going through mentally as a young man. And nobody talks about the parent that has the gentleman as a child, as their son, and what the mothers go through when they get hurt, when the gentleman get hurt. Because I'm not teaching my son not to be a gentleman. I'm not teaching him not to, respect the lady and everything else. He knows all the abuse I've been through in my past and with his father and everything else. He knows everything about me and his father dating. He knows everything. So I'm not teaching him things that I want him to go down the wrong road. I'm teaching him at an early age. Okay, this is what gentlemen do. This is what this. So he has it in him, but Lord, this boundary thing was a big one because it gets to the point where I think we all do this. We think because they're our friends or our family members or somebody we like or somebody we close with that they have access to us to do and say anything. We do it as adults. I'm dealing with a boundary issue with my best friend and her husband or whatever. Not that they crossed the boundary, but her husband feeling like I'm crossing boundaries because me and her best friends and she gives me access or whatever that he feel like I shouldn't have. Now, so I'm dealing with that literally right now at the same time as my son dealing with how to have boundaries with his female friendships. I don't think he hasn't came to me about his male friendships because I think kind of males like, that's for homie, we talk at school, but that's it. But females, they do. They cross a lot of boundaries. We do cross a lot of boundaries that we don't even know what we do. So when I initially talked to him a couple of weeks ago about putting up the boundaries, it was the hardest conversation he had to have. Because he had to have a conversation with a friend that was crossing a lot of boundaries, and it was technically confusing him. And so, him having that conversation, make a long story short, things worked out well, but he still ended up getting hurt in the end by having that conversation. And I had to tell him that, yes, that conversation is not an easy conversation to have, but it needs to be had. And because he never knew that what boundaries were, it felt uneasy and it felt uncomfortable. Now, that goes back to as adults. How many times have we did something or someone did something to us and we just allowed them to do it, and then when it got brought to our attention, or we felt like our toes to get stepped on, and it's like the other person like, oh, I always did that. We do that a lot in family. I think most of in my situations with experience with my family, boundaries has got crossed with brothers and sisters, especially in my family with this generation with brothers and sisters breaking up, and boundaries got crossed, and it's because boundaries got crossed, relationships got cut off because nobody set boundaries in the relationship to say, even though we're brother and sister, you can't do that. So I think we do it by happenstance. We do it where we really think that we're in the right, and somebody bring it to our attention, and it's like, no. Now, when me and my husband first got married, he had no boundaries. He's still working on them, but he had none. And if you know what my husband does, my husband is very busy with his job, and he's kind of like a contract worker or whatever, but at the same time, so his phone is pretty much open where he get calls and he get gigs and set appointments and all that good stuff, right? But now you have a wife, that can't happen, and I think it was very hard for him in the beginning to understand you just can't answer your phone just because it might be an appointment or something. They could leave a message. Or be a gig or something like that. If we're trying to have family time and you come home, the phone got to be put away. Me personally, I can't stand my phone unless you're my best friend Maddie, literally, because she talks to me. We talk to each other every day. That's a boundary that ain't crossed. It's just that's I think. But we talk to each other every day, unless you're my best friend Maddie, and we know what times we talk to each other because we got husbands, everything else. No. I don't even like the phone. I don't like nothing about having our phones constantly. Usually when I come home, I put my phone up. One, because like I just got off right now, and then I just jumped right on this podcast because that's basically what I have to do. One, what y'all don't see is I'm trying to get dinner together. I gotta wash clothes. I gotta get the house together. I gotta make sure that me and my husband's schedule aligned, that we sit down, we have meetings about things that's coming up, things that, things he needs to do if he's out of town for work, because he works a lot out of town, and what's going to happen with the kids. And that's a lot. It's a lot in itself to have to put on the plate. And so a lot of times, to me, the phone is a free access that I started saying in the last, I think, 3-4 years, it's a privilege to talk to me. And if we start figuring out that the phone is a privilege, we won't have so much access to just answer for anybody. I know a lot of my friends. Hey, that my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. I do it on purpose. I did it like almost 4 years ago when I first got out of my divorce and everything else. One, I did it for my peace. Because when I couldn't talk to nobody, I had to talk to the Lord, and my phone was a distraction. Steady harboring on situations and negativity and getting on the phone just talking about nothing, pretty much gossiping, and ask me, am I okay? But we ain't really talking about nothing on how to help me heal from it wasn't a solution for me. I'm kind of the person, I try to deal with stuff myself, and I try to heal by myself. So I put that phone on Do Not Disturb. After a while, it just stayed on Do Not Disturb. People can't stand it. Oh, your phone was on Do Not Disturb. If you really need something, you can wait, and I'll call you back. If I call you back anytime I can't talk to you, then it wasn't no need. That's a boundary that I put up for myself 4 years ago that I still stick to this day. One, like I said, when I come home, even when I'm by myself and now the kids are going with their dads on weekends and we may be gone on a work gig, I don't want the phone around me. I just literally don't like the phone. Usually on Fridays is my worst day because I'm exhausted from work. By the time Friday get here, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to do nothing but come home like I did last Friday. The kids was gone. William was out of town working, and I came home last Friday, and I went to sleep. I put on pajamas, made a bowl of cereal, and went to sleep. Put on my crime shows, because if you know me, I love crime shows. And I went to sleep. That was my peace. But I did that because, and I do that because, and I think I have my phone still on vibrate from work. I woke up to so many calls, text messages. My goddaughter texted me. My best friend Maddie texted and called me. And I think, because what me and her do is when she got to go out of town for work overnight because she does organ procurement, we talk to each other. You know, she let me know if she's out of town. And I think that one night she was going out of town. And so she was like, oh, you was really tired. I was like, I was exhausted. But the last few Fridays, since I've been working at these schools, at the school, I've been exhausted on Fridays. Fridays is like, I'm exhausted during the week because, one, I get up at 4 in the morning. That's because, of course, you know, I have to talk to the Lord. 2, that's my time. I gotta prep and meal prep and make breakfast, make my lunch, make sure I'm eating right, make sure my husband is eating right, he's getting down his weight and everything else. So staying consistent, me staying consistent on the discipline I have for myself and also for him, and then making sure my son is taking his ADD medication because he tries not to take it sometimes, and you know, making sure he eating, because if I wake up later than that, he'll hit your I forgot and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Making sure my daughter is getting up in time. So all this mentally I have to prepare for. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. But with that being said, I have to set boundaries. I know that I'm not going to call my best friend Maddie after 5 o'clock. Unless we got something planned or we know something. We usually don't talk to each other after 5 o'clock unless it's something like serious. She's been helping me lately remember to take my medication. She got an alarm on her phone just to help me to remember taking my medication because I don't know why I'm horrible at it. Since the stroke, my memory has been a little foggy more. And when I stress, it just is worse. But she's been helping me take my medication, stay on it, that I'm on since the stroke. So I know after 5 o'clock, I don't talk to her because that's the time her husband gets home and he needs his time, you know. And so that's when I'm like, okay, we'll text each other. If we really need to talk about something, we'll text each other. But if it's not a need, it'd be more like, I love you, talk to you tomorrow, stuff like that. We'll talk in the morning. We'll set our times so we're going to talk and actually have our personal time. And so even with me and her, both of us are like tremendously for right now, busy in our lives. And so we both just like, oh my God, we just got a lot going on. She got more going on than I do because she just bought a house and she getting her whole new house remodeled and her kitchen gutted out, and you know what I'm saying, and then she had to sell the old house, and she been going through a lot. Yeah, as a friend, there needs to be boundaries where you have to think and set up that I can't call her all the time when I need to talk. Because I tell you, she is the best person for me to talk to because she knows how to get this anxiety from 100. It goes down quick when I talk to her. But sometimes I have to think, who else can I rely on to talk to if I can't talk to her to get my anxiety down? You know what I'm saying? Or can I just, you know, like I said, talk to the Lord, or can I just go separate and wait? She doesn't like that. Now, don't get me wrong. She hates finding out stuff like the next day or last minute. Why you didn't call me? Why you didn't text me? Why you didn't tell me? Because I'm thinking about it. Forget me. She is just like that. So selfless that she like, forget me. But I still set a boundary with myself, with her, to say, no, that's not fair. It's not fair for me to dump all my stuff on her and then knowing she got a lot going on. Whether she had a lot going on or not, she still got a life. She's a wife, a mother, and so that means and she works a full-time job and does an amazing job. About a month ago, I got her some flowers delivered, and that's not gonna stop. Monthly, I'm gonna get her some flowers delivered because I'm proud of her. First of all, we both love flowers. So if I can get her flowers delivered, that's what I'm going to do every month. So we both love flowers so much that's what I wanted to do for her because that's her love language though. But I still set boundaries. Now I got to set more boundaries, like I said, because earlier, you know, we found out the husband feeling a certain way because of this and that. Okay, more boundaries got to be set. I know she don't want it, and I don't want it, but that's her husband, okay? But the same way, we have to set boundaries, and a lot of people ain't gonna like this in our own relationships. Yes, you should have boundaries with your spouse. There's no way that your spouse should have all access. And I'm not saying all access to you, because they should have all access to you, but I'm talking about all access where there's no ground rules for boundaries, meaning one of my boundaries with my husband is, you must call me, or a requirement, I'll say, because you could use a requirement or boundary, but at the same time, a boundary is more of what I would not allow, what's not going to happen. Abuse, physical abuse. Let me see. Us not discussing finances before it's spent. Those are boundaries. People don't know that though. And I'm talking about small stuff. What else? What else would be a great boundary for a relationship? Us discussing your friendships and allowing the wife and the husband to have a say so, and who you really feel like is there for your husband and your spouse. I think men are more like, don't say nothing about my friend or whatever. But I think if men say stuff about our friends that we really don't care, we like, I think men have a problem with that, and that's a boundary that don't get crossed. Meaning, no, I don't say, it ain't that I don't say nothing about them, but if I feel like I need to speak up and say, that's not a real friend, I should have the access to do that. But there should be a boundary where I'm not telling you, or he's not telling me to cut somebody off because of how I feel. Now, that's no. But if you feel like the person is not for your spouse, there should be a discussion. There should be a conversation about, I don't really think that's your friend. And these are my reasons why. And these are my examples. But if you still want to be friends with them, then that's fine. Boundaries are needed in every relationship, situationship, friendship, and familyship. When I talk about boundaries and friendships too, it's just like with my son. We have this thing where I can say you can have boundaries with your family. So me and my son is like really, really close or whatever. But we have boundaries too in our own thing. He used to hate. I used to just never knock on the door. When me and my husband get married, he knocks on the door. I don't knock on the door. I just walk in. Oh, I walked into nakedness. Every time he like, Mom, that's a boundary. Also, I don't go through my son's phone. Now, people might disagree with this. It's your parenting is your parenting. Yes, I pay for the phone. Yes, it's my phone. And I tell my son, that's my phone. Until you go afford to pay for it, it's my phone. But there's a boundary because I need to build trust. So I actually tell my son, until you give me something not to trust you for, I'm not going to your phone. My son can't come in my room and just go through my phone. I think he knows. I wouldn't care. But I think he would care if I don't want to see his conversation with little girlfriend or whatever. But he knows that if there's any disrespect, if there's anything that's against our family rules, against his standard as a man of God, because I'm raising a man of God, period. Then if I feel like there's anything I need to go on there for, then I will. And he knows I will. If I feel like your phone is distracting you too much from schoolwork, or girls is distracting you too much from you getting where you need to be in school, I would cut the phone off. Like, I would take the phone, not cut it off, but take the phone. I've done it before. And that boy was so lost, like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how. He didn't know how. It's so funny. Real quick. He didn't even know how to get on the bus without. He knew how to get on the bus, but he did not know how to write notes without having his phone. And I'm like, pen and paper. I bet you that boy won't get that phone taken no more. Because he like, what? Pen and paper. They use computers at his school. But with that being said, I have a boundary with my son. My baby girl, there's not really any kind of boundaries I'm teaching yet. I'm teaching her to have boundaries for herself, like, you know, somebody touching her. Those are boundaries. Her private parts, those are boundaries. You know, I'm teaching her to have boundaries for herself, but me and her don't have boundaries yet because I still have to build up that trust first. I talked about boundaries with my friend, husband, son. We just need boundaries with people, period. Now, people that just should go out saying, my neighbor downstairs, me and her real close. But no, you cannot just walk in my house. You know what I'm saying? Unless I give you access. The other boundaries we know that goes without saying, it's the boundaries where when we really close with people. That's when we don't know how to cut off the boundaries. And so I said all this to say, sum up the podcast. Boundaries are important. Boundaries are needed. And you need to take a step back to really reevaluate your friendships, your situationships, your marriage, your family, and see if you have boundaries. Just ask the questions. Ask your spouse, because it's always the spouses. They don't have boundaries. Just think about it. Do you have boundaries with your friends? Do you have boundaries with your family members? Do you have boundaries with your spouse? And if not, you need to put something up. Because I promise you, it will save you a whirlwind of hurt. And with that being said, thank you for listening to the Breakthrough Podcast. I am here to help, support, and help you grow as I'm growing and we're nurturing in this thing that God has told me to do. And we're just hoping that this podcast just grows more. And wherever God wants to take it, it takes it. I don't need to be popular. I just want to do what God is telling me to do. So, like, share, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We are on Anchor, Riverside, Spotify. Not Anchor anymore. Riverside and Spotify. And I will see you guys back next week on another edition of the Breakthrough Podcast. Thank you.